I think everyone has a house that stands out in their memory the most. It could be the house where you spent your childhood, or the house where you had happy years later in life. I also have such a house, despite the fact that it is no longer in my family. I continue to remember it and will always remember it as long as I live. This house continues to live its own life in my memories. These memories are so vivid that I can't say it is left somewhere in the past. This house has witnessed many happy and sad moments in our family life. It is where we met with relatives and friends. It is also where my grandmother and my mother passed away. The house is located in the suburbs of the Yoshkar-Ola, just a few kilometers away from the city, but more than 2000 kilometers from where we live now. I parted with this house long ago when I moved to the south of Russia to the beginning of my adult life. My father parted with this house later, after my mother died. Years later, every time we find ourselves in the city of Yoshkar-Ola, we take the car and visit our former home. We drive along the fence of the house, first on one side and then on the other. We don't know what is happening behind the fence now, as we don't know the current owners. As we drive past the house, we gaze avidly into the windows, trying to catch glimpses of now distant life of our beloved home. The spruce and Manchurian walnut trees by the fence were planted when they were tiny. The piney trees brought from my father's homeland were planted here along the fence. The abandoned village where my father was born was overgrown with pine forest, and we dug up some small pine trees, brought them here and planted them. Now a real forest has grown. The location of the house is ideal. It is easily accessible from the city even by trolley bus, and next to it, just a few steps away, is an untouched forest where we often walked. Our former slightly changed house is now hidden from our eyes by a high fence, leaving us with only one last option – to walk through the forest, which we used to do often. My father started building the house back in the 90s, and my brother and I, being children, helped him with it. At the beginning of construction, the house was actually located in an empty field, not built up with other houses. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, wealthy individuals began to desire their own homes, and houses began to spring up around ours. Compared to these new houses, ours looked like a village house. Unfortunately, I don't have any photos of the house taken in the 90s. My photo archive set on the computer begins its annals in 2003. We built the house over a long period. For many years it served us primarily as a summer house, where we spent weekends during the summertime. At that time we already lived in a spacious apartment in the city center and didn't need additional housing. The house was mostly a construction site with a couple of living rooms filled with old, dusty, unnecessary furniture. My father remodeled the rooms in the house several times. The final remodeling resulted in a large hall, living room, kitchen, dining room, toilet, bathroom, and garage on the first floor. There was a fireplace in the living room, and in the dining room my father even built a Russian stove as a memory of the village where he was born. On the second floor there were 4 bedrooms, one of which was a summer room. In addition, a real wooden Russian bathhouse stood separately on the plot of the land. Sometimes relatives would come to our dacha on weekends, and we would have fun grilling kebabs. Those who wanted to test the extreme temperatures of the Russian bathhouse could do so at their own risk. Around the house we planted a large number of apple trees of various varieties and pear trees. In these photos they are still small, but later in the spring the house will be surrounded by blossoming trees, and here is our dog Gerd, who lived at our dacha for a short time. After 2007, I visited the house once a year. Traveling with a small child made long distances challenging. Every time we come to visit, relatives and friends would gather with us. After such meetings, it was especially sad to leave my beloved house and fly 2,000 kilometers south.
Сейчас Вите голову пойдем мыть, все. Пойдем, прыгай сильно, из-за этого голову пойдем мыть. Тогда не прыгай сильно.
Life was buzzing when everyone gathered in the house. The adults sat around the table, and the children ran tirelessly throughout the house. For a couple of years in a row I visited my parents' house in winter, having almost forgotten what snow was like after living in the south of Russia. These photos were taken by my father in the first half of May 2012, during my absence. In the spring, the house was literally surrounded by a sea of blossoming apple and pear trees. My parents had an active lifestyle because living in their own house meant there was always something to do. These photos were taken in 2013. If someone had told me that in a year my mother, who led a healthy lifestyle, would die of cancer, I would not have believed it. – 2014 was the last year our family owned the house. After my mother died, my father did something he never would have done if she had been alive. He sold the house and moved to the south of Russia as well. These photos were taken for the real estate agency when my father sold the house. This is how the story of our family and this house ended. After 2014, I didn't visit the city and the house until 4 years later in 2018. We drove along the fence of the house. Unfortunately, I couldn't find this video on my computer. We then visited our former home 6 years later, in 2024. As is our tradition, we drove around the fence of our house. That's where this video begins. Choosing photos from my archive to create this video, I feel as though I have lived that life anew. I experienced feelings of joy and sadness again. At some point in space and time, we parted ways with our home, and it continues to live on only in my memories. Now that house provides comfort to another family. I have no doubt that this house is now just as firmly connected with many happy and sad memories and experiences of the people living there. I even questioned whether I should show this video to my father, for fear that resurfacing memories might trigger an acute sense of longing and nostalgia. He has become accustomed to his new home, and I don't want to disturb his heart one piece.
Вот лес. Мы привезли с деревни сосны.